Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm excited to be on this Thursday night edition of The Brick Wall, and I'm also very excited because for the first time in the series, which I started 5 weeks ago, I'm live in person with Double Trouble, Anthony Russo from Florida, as well as Cain, who's from Texas. They're both attorneys with the Law Center, and we're down here in Birmingham, Alabama for a meeting, so they were kind enough to take some time on the side of the meeting and join me for a couple of questions. So thank you, gentlemen, for here. I'm going to ask the questions and put you on camera over here. So, Brett, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career, and then Anthony will ask you to do the same.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Hi, everyone. I'm Cain. I practice law in Texas. We handle only personal injury cases, and I've been practicing, started my firm about 15 years ago. And so from then until now, we found ourselves helping all kinds of folks across the state. And so we've handled East Texas, West Texas, and all the terrible things that can come from trauma is right up our alley. And at the end of the day, there are many families that we've been able to help over the years. So that's what we do.
All right, and Anthony, how about you?
I'm Anthony Russo. I've been practicing in Florida for just past the silver anniversary, 25 years, going on number 26. And we handle mainly, our main area of practice is personal injury, all types of injuries. We do a lot of nursing home cases, and we've, for the last 10 years, been active in mass tort.
That said, it was a journalist that said, they're the reason that insurance companies are, premiums are so high in New Orleans. So, how do you contest that? And I know that there's also there are good reasons to get in it as far as protecting people and getting them good settlements. So, how would you guys answer that?
Yeah, well, I'll go first. I've got a lot to say about that. Number one, we've been gifted with knowledge. And that's to be used for the benefit of others, right? And so we are here to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. And when it comes to the injury world, the insurance company, they have lawyers. They know the game. And they can decide whether to do the right thing. And if they did, the general public wouldn't even need to hire us. We could go on and do some other type of law. But obviously, they're a business, and the bottom line is the number one thing for them. And so families get the short end of the stick, and they need help. I'll tell you, Warren, most of my clients, they don't want to call me, and they don't want to be sitting in my office. The day their trauma happened, they had plans to have a completely different day. Of course. It's like that cartoon where the piano drops out of the sky. They didn't see it coming. And then when they went to the people to make it right, who are the insurance companies, they got closed door after closed door. And so that's kind of my 2 cents when it comes to the insurance folks. And that's what I would say back to them.
And it's also, Anthony, before you answer, it's also interesting because we were just talking about David and Goliath. And you guys are evening the playing field for people who otherwise would be offered a low settlement early on, or dragged through the mud by insurance companies and being ignored, which I've also heard happen sometimes. So that's I think it's interesting to compare to that. You're bringing some more Goliath to David and taking on the insurance companies for folks. And Anthony, if you could please answer.
Well, to elaborate on what Brett said, first of all, I would tell you that Brett, as well as a lot of the other colleagues we have, Brett's one of the most compassionate lawyers that I've ever met, who cares more about his clients than about anything else I've ever seen. And so it's a testament to be a colleague of his, and my other colleagues that are involved in the law center. These are real quality people who care. I haven't had in the 25 years of practice one client who was catastrophically injured who didn't say to me, I give all this money back and everything else I have if you could get me back to where I was the day before the accident. And that's what keeps me going all these years. As far as the insurance company is concerned, I've fought this battle for 25 years on the political arena, in the court of public opinion, and I'm no stranger to fighting insurance companies and their and their scare tactics and their fear-monger tactics and their everything they've done to try and intimidate and scare people into thinking that we're the bad guys, that we're the reason why insurance rates are higher, we're the reason why things don't get settled. Every one of the clients that calls me has, just like Brett told me the same thing. I don't want to be here. We're here because nobody would do the right thing by us, and we had no other choice but to go to you.
And I think it's also an important point to say that you guys self-fund the cases. No, you don't get paid until you get a settlement or until you win a jury trial or you get a verdict on behalf of your client. So you're outlaying a lot of money and a lot of time, to help these people. So again, everyone should be rewarded for that, for that time. I think that's super important.
Yeah, look, the common man, the working fella, they can't afford all that it costs to fight Goliath. And Goliath knows that, And so, look, it's a human, it's a person with a soul who's got a family, and people depend on one another versus a corporation and funding and corporate America. So look, the only way to level the ground, to level the playing field, is for us to structure our fee the way we do. We don't get paid unless our clients win. And if we lose, we lose. But we are willing, and I know at any point in time, that's the risk we take with every case. And I know Anthony has done it for many more years than I have. So I hope, as he's passing on to me, look, this is the torch. I hope to do that for my younger lawyers. It's the only way to make it right.
I think it's important for that people should look at it from that perspective. I want to transition over. Obviously, it's interesting. I just came from New York to come down here to Birmingham. Everyone up there is wearing masks. I've been home for 11 weeks. I know everyone's been home, but both of you were in states where things were a little bit more relaxed. Can you describe what it was like in Texas and then what it was like in Florida? During the coronavirus, and what did you do during the pandemic? I know it's not over yet, but things seem to be moving in a positive direction.
Well, our practice is statewide in Florida, and probably similar to Texas, as Brett would comment on. It's almost like 2 different or 3 different states or regions. In South Florida was much more affected than other areas of Florida, the northern part of Florida, the western parts of Florida. Just traveling amongst our offices, we saw the difference in just the societal behavior, how people were acting. It was much less restricted in other areas, even though the governor had put statewide, issues in effect. Most of the regions differed from area to area.
And what was Texas like?
Yeah, Texas, you can carve out Houston, Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio as our urban areas, and then you have the rest of Texas. And I think that you saw that in the pandemic. Early on, for me personally, it was a family decision first, and then a work decision immediately after that. How do we take care of our people? And I remember just trying to get educated. None of us have been through this before. Where do we go get the right information? That was so frustrating to me. I couldn't find a clear source, because frankly it was all new for them too. Whoever was providing the data, it was real time. So anyway, we did like most folks. We hunkered down. Work transitioned to home. All of our employees went electronic. We handled our clients' matters by Zoom, and it didn't take very long for the court system to follow suit. What's funny is I had just finished a trial at the end of January, and that was one of the last civil cases in our community. They haven't had any trials since then. And to think, during that trial, that we were about to have the social disruption that was coming through the COVID, and to think now if we had a jury pool and what would need to take place to do the wise and prudent thing, it's fascinating. It's completely another world.
Wasn't Texas the first state last week to have the first jury trial by Zoom?
If so, that's new news to me.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so I know for me, on the docket that I'm on, I mean, we've had hearings that don't require juries by Zoom. We have continued to bump out. I had another trial set in March, and it keeps bumping out. Right now, it's bumped out to August. And each judge gets to make their own decision, and that's probably the same in all jurisdictions. The judges have a lot of discretion.
What's it like for you guys to be here? I mean, we're in a hotel. We traveled here. There's obviously restrictions here. There's there's plastic on every door handle. There's no housekeeping. But what's it like for you guys to, after 11 weeks, 12 weeks, at home in your home state, to now be back out and to be at a conference and with colleagues and others?
It's different. It's great, but it's different. And I don't, I was telling my teenage children that this is something I think is going to stick with them the rest of their lives. They're never going to forget this time. I think it was a momentous time in history. That's going to change. I don't think anything will ever go back to the way it was completely. Similar to 9/11, it changed the world. I mean, I think this pandemic will change the world.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, 9/11 for me was my first day of high school. And I'll never forget that day, and I'll never forget the smell in New York City, for weeks and weeks afterwards. And I agree. I think I'm hoping with little kids at home that they'll not know and not be impacted by it. Obviously, it'll be a piece of history, but yeah, I mean, I think it will stick with many of us forever. And I'll definitely be buying a lot more Purell and washing my hands more often. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing. It's the new normal. I remember we were an essential business, and so even though my staff went home, I went into work every day, and it was like, what do you say? Like traveling on the roadway at 7:30 on a Saturday morning, every single day, like Groundhog Day, and to come out of that, I mean, yeah, it's just the new normal, and so. I don't know what many other monumental events will happen in our lifetime, but this is certainly going to be it for my generation.
Brad Eggenberg would send me pictures from his building in New Orleans, of downtown New Orleans at rush hour, and there'd be no cars on the road.
Yeah, our office in New Orleans is in the same building, and I was there yesterday. And I always have trouble finding parking, but it was a breeze yesterday.
Right.
But the post office was closed, so I couldn't check our mail or get anything. Anthony, want to tell us? I mean, you're in a state where people call it God's waiting room. I know there are other people that live there too. What do you think about liability as far as nursing homes? I know that there have been certain states that are saying that nursing homes might not be liable, or they'll be exempt from liability in certain cases. But what is it like in Florida, and what do you think will be the impact as far as litigation from COVID-19?
Well, being experienced in the nursing home, or practice in the nursing home abuse and neglect area of law, we initially had a wait and see approach. Let's see what happens if, depending on each region, what the impact was for the people that were in the nursing homes. True to form, the nursing home lobby tried to step in and get themselves some exemption from liability. They lobbied the governor, and we were very happy that the governor stood his ground and said, there's not going to be any retrieval from liability. That's ludicrous. Mm-hmm. Where's the basis for saying you can just, if somebody died in your nursing home, you don't have to worry about whether it's your fault or not. That's against everything that that goes in the legal justice system. So there was a strong attempt on it, and there was a big pushback. And after that, our firm decided, in consulting with some of the other guys that are big nursing home abuse lawyers, we decided we were going to go full force into the nursing home and be very aggressive about it. And we've been contacted by several families and investigating several cases, and we're going to push forward, and I think they're going to be very strong cases.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I don't think there should be exemption. I think I think that there's obviously a lot of gray area. And I should leave my opinion out of this, but if a nursing home or senior care facility is doing the right thing and they're operating according to standards and law, then I think that they should. If they make a mistake, and there should still be liability. But then there's also terribly bad actors who just don't care on a Tuesday, and let alone a bad situation like this. But again, I should leave my opinion out of it.
The nursing home lobby has been, again, in my opinion, and the trial bar, I can speak for most of the trial bar, they've been abusing the system as far as their insurance coverage. And as far as they're taking responsibility, they've been doing that, abusing the system for years, trying to manipulate the legislature into passing laws that limit their liability. If they can't limit the liability directly, they're limiting it by limiting attorney fees or trying to backdoor it in other ways. People then point to, what about New York? Well, New York's, in my opinion, is a different area. I mean, I'm licensed in New York, but I don't actively practice up there. But New York was different. That was an order. The governor ordered people to go back there.
Yeah.
Against the advice of the nursing homes, against the medical advice. Different story. That I think there you can make an argument that liability has been taken away from the nursing homes because their hands were tied. They didn't have a say in it. Completely different in my state of Florida.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, the governor said that, and that's. I agree that there should be an exemption. What do you think?
Yeah, so Warren, I'd like to chime in. I don't know that much about nursing home cases. I know they exist. I know they're most often just the terrible side of someone's final days. And for me, that's the value of the law center. Like, I can resource Anthony and get educated just like he did now. He shared with you, like, here's the approach, here's the lay of the land. We do that in the law center collectively. We've got lawyers all over the country, and it's really good to be with like-minded folks, to be the best and at the top of our profession, and to develop a team effort. We really provide just exponential value to those that we're serving.
That's true, and you're right. I mean, coming together and having sharing expertise amongst yourselves. Brett, what cases do you see arising from COVID? Or do you plan on filing any cases?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've had things come our way, and look, COVID's brand new. I'm a big believer in do one thing and do it well. So I'm going to have our eyes open and our ear to the ground to listen to folks who call and have whatever situation that comes up. But frankly, I can't answer that yet because we were talking moments ago. There's so many factors that come into play. There's no case law that's going to be directly on point. And number two, what jurisdiction are you going to be in? Every state has different laws. There's commercial institutions, there's residential, there's personal policies. I mean, who knows? But right now, I'm not bird dogging that necessarily, but that could change any given week in the near future.
Is there? I mean, I know you said there's no recent case law. I mean, do you think it's worth digging back into 1918, looking at the Spanish flu, or do you think there was any? I mean, I'll definitely be researching that after this conversation, but I think that'd be interesting to see if there are any lawsuits that arose from that, because I know that there was definitely more irresponsibility, like the Philadelphia parade that went on with 300,000 people got infected, from that one day.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm just the trial lawyer guy. So I'll have my team. I've got a lot of people who are much smarter than me that do the research and analysis to educate me as I argue to a jury or a judge for one thing or another. And that team, that's up for them. They'll have to help us out with that.
Absolutely.
From a lawyer perspective, I do see oftentimes with new issues, new areas of law coming up, the birth of I use the term cottage industry, where a whole bunch of new type of law is birthed out of a tragedy, and I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see areas of law that will be existing in mainstay 5 or 10 years from now that were originated at this point from this whole different avenue of lawsuits that we haven't thought of yet, or hasn't really hatched yet.
Everything is unprecedented at the moment. Anthony, if I can ask you, I mean, obviously we're in Birmingham, Alabama. There's a 7 p.m. curfew here because of the unfortunate death of George Floyd and then the subsequent riots and things that were going on. I wanted to ask you about police liability. If during these riots and protests, you see there are times in certain states and certain cities where the cops have been standoffish and they've been and then there's also been protesters that have been peaceful. I think the vast majority of them are peaceful. And that message is getting across. I've said on this Facebook Live series many times that looting is just not acceptable. I think, and I've had many African American community leaders and folks agree with that and say that that's crossing the line. But if the cops react or overreact, what's the liability and what can be done about that?
Well, the first thing I can say is Brett Turnbull lives about a mile from here, and he just got a call from his wife. I was just with him. His wife said, there's something going on locally in this suburb. We're in a suburban area of Birmingham now. Something going on locally here. Originally, we were supposed to be downtown Birmingham, and we moved this meeting area up to here to get away from the downtown. So it's right on top of us right now. It's real. I live in Fort Lauderdale, and the first night, Sunday night, we were watching from our window the rioting right on the street in front of us, 500 or so police officers. I think, to answer your question, it's going to depend on the particular area, how any of that liability is going to shake out. A lot of times it's localized. If you're looking at, let's say, downtown Birmingham, we always look, as trial lawyers, we always look at things on a jury. Okay, what's a jury going to, even within a state like Florida, you have different juries in different counties, completely different verdicts come out of different areas based on the demographics. And if you're in downtown Birmingham, you might have a case where, an alleged police brutality or a looter or a protester who's been a victim of alleged abuse is going to prosecute his case and may have a certain outcome in Birmingham as opposed to maybe Scottsdale, Arizona, where there's a different demographic makeup. So how those cases are pursued, how the liability shakes out, what lawyers pursue it, I think is really going to be depending on the actual jurisdiction you're in. Now, the law is law. Most of that is under the 1983 Civil Rights Law. So that's a federal law that is equally applied everywhere. But really, things play out in juries, and it plays out in the specific area that it's put in. So it's really going to depend on, in my opinion, where the jurisdiction is and who your jury pool is.
And as a follow-up to that, I mean, obviously I'm in PR. Everyone knows that. I share that a lot here. But do you think that the media and the pressure from the media in this situation, or current situation that we're in right now, would help you out if you were filing a case against the police department for potential brutality? Or do you?
Well, I mean, but does it provide them ratings? I mean,
of course it does,
right?
Yeah.
So that
on both sides of the aisle,
right? So, I mean, I'm looking at that from the outside. I don't know what drives them. But I have a sense that obviously it would be relevant. Now, what they do with it and how they comment on it, I get surprised often, So I don't know. But what I can say is what the community perceives is what matters. So just like Anthony was saying, I mean, look, if something again were to occur, like maybe in my community, and police broke protocol or went outside the bounds of the law, they'll be subject to two types of punishment: civil and criminal. And so the criminal liability is a completely different component and a completely different consequence than the civil component. The civil side is recompensed by compensation. And the criminal side deals with fines and jail time, or both. And so for us, we're on the civil side.
Mm-hmm.
And the civil side will be held in federal court. And in federal court, the way that the judge most often conducts the jury selection for us versus state court where we get to have wide latitude. And the reason why I bring that up is because we need to know what's on the pulse of the community, i.e. what is the media communicating to our community, and how is our potential jury pool responding to that? Which is why we do monthly focus groups. I try all my cases 6 or 7 different times through focus groups to make sure we know what's on their blackboard. What are they thinking? Like, I know what's the newspaper might be saying, but what do my neighbors think? Because at the end of the day, that's where the rubber meets the road. And for us to advocate for our clients, that's what matters.
That, I mean, I've never heard of that before, but as far as, I mean, the focus groups, is that common practice? Because that's fascinating, and, you know, practice, you know, that makes perfect. And you're, like you said, you know, everyone in the law center is trying to be at the highest, you know, level as far as, you know, representing clients and delivering great results and verdicts.
I think in this day and age, when with the unlimited access everybody has to media and technology, I would think it's a dirty word, and we don't like to use it as lawyers, but I would think it's almost paramount to malpractice to not go ahead if you have that opportunity to try your case in front of as many people that are going to give you relevant feedback on it as possible to put yourself in the best position. You do trial runs on other things. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're testing a rocket, they do the launches, they do trial runs, they do as much information as you can gather to help make the best decision for your client. If you have it available to you know, you have to do it as a trial lawyer. It's your ethical, your moral obligation, and it's just smart business sense.
Yeah, I want to say before I let you guys go, I know that, you know, we have a busy night ahead. I know every lawyer at the Law Center can be found at thelawcenter.com. But do you guys also want to share individually your personal firm's domains and where you can be found?
My firm is the Russo Firm. We're at therussofirm.com, TheRussofirm.com.
All right, Brett?
Yeah, likewise. We're just Cain Firm, so we take off the. Yeah, but so we're CAIN, CainFirm.com. We have a statewide practice in Texas. We have an office in the Metroplex, the DFW area, and we're launching our Houston office. And yeah, that's us.
I appreciate you guys joining me and taking the time again, you know, alongside our conference to do this. I know we've had a long day. And, you know, I'm really excited that, you know, the two of you were my first in person. I've been doing this for 5-6 weeks now, but this was the first time I've ever done it in person. So thank you very much, and look forward to doing more in person and to building up the Law Center.
Thank you, Warren.
Thanks, guys.